Hello and welcome to the 2021 FedNow Community Town Hall webinar. I'm Jean Roark from the Federal Reserve, and I'll be producing today's event. Before turning the call over to our speakers, I'll run through a few logistics. Regarding your webinar connection, all attendees are automatically set up to consume this event through the web stream option. If at any time you experience audio issues, you're welcome to dial into the phone number, and that's posted on the player page. Please note that if you dial into the phone line for audio, the live stream video or the video your webinar will not sync. So there is a setting you need to make an adjustment for, and that is located at the just above the speaker photo window, and that is a gray gear. Go ahead and select that gear, and that will open a media chooser, and you'll select the phone option. But those instructions are not necessary if you're listening through the stream. That's only if you're listening through the phone. For optimal viewing, we recommend you use Google Chrome, Firefox, or Edge for your web browser. You can expand the size of the slides, and to do that, just use the Maximize button in the upper right corner of the slide window, and that's located on the webinar player page. If at any time your page freezes or it's inactive for a bit, you can always close and reopen the page or press F5 on your keyboard to refresh that window. We'll be taking audience questions during the webinar, and we'd love to hear from you. To submit a question, use the Ask Question button located on the webinar player page. And you can submit your questions anytime during the event, and we encourage you to do so. And we'll also be using a chat feature later on in the presentation. So keep your ears and stay ready for that. All right, it is now my pleasure to turn our call over to Vice President of Industry Relations at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, Cassie Quimby.
Thank you, Jean. Good morning. I'm Cassie Quimby, the host of today's webinar. We are so happy to be here with you for our first FedNow Community Town Hall of 2021. Thank you all for joining us today and for your continued engagement with the community. I'm happy to say that we keep seeing this community grow every day. I'd like to welcome especially all of our new members who've joined since the last time we met virtually. Let's go ahead and move to slide 2, Jean. All right, let me walk you through our agenda for today. Nick Stanescu, who's the Senior Vice President and FedNow Business Executive, will welcome you and give you an overview of recent FedNow efforts and announcements. Then I'll walk you through our community objectives and what we accomplished together in 2020. During this portion, we'll revisit some of the polling questions that we asked during our community kickoff last year and to understand changes in perspectives over the last 8 months, so we can talk through that a little bit. Next, Allison Baller, who's the Vice President and FedNow Industry Readiness Lead, will discuss what we learned from industry engagements in 2020 and how we plan to solicit more feedback via the community this year in 2021. We'll then preview plans for educational efforts you can expect from us this year and engage in some initial feedback on these tools. Throughout the webinar today, we'll be offering multiple opportunities for you to share your thoughts with us. And before we close today's webinar, we'll have allotted time for a Q&A session. As Jean mentioned already, if you do have questions that are top of mind, please go ahead and start submitting them now so we can start to sort through them on the back end. And you'll do that just by seeing that Ask Question button, clicking on that, entering your question, hitting Submit, and we'll get it. All right, Nick, I'll turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Cassie, and good morning, everyone. I, too, want to thank you all for joining us today. As we look back at 2020, we have made tremendous progress in establishing the FedNow community. We started by formally launching the community in May, and then 8 months later, we have over 1,000 members across 700 organizations spanning a broad range of the industry. The FedNow program has also hit its key milestones and advanced critical work in 2020. We announced the FedNow service features and functionality that would be available at launch. through the Federal Register notice back in August. We also begun technology development and advanced our strategies for supporting use cases that are expected to gain initial traction in the market based very much on the feedback that this community has provided to us. Similarly, with your feedback, we have also refined the ISO message specifications and also discussed reconciliation needs to inform our service design. We also have been collaborating with the clearinghouse on message specifications as well. And finally, we introduced the FedNow pilot program, which we will discuss later today. It is important to make sure that we take a moment to acknowledge the value that your support and continued engagement has provided in helping us reach these key milestones in 2020. Our continued dialogue with you throughout a variety of forums have truly helped us and helped our understanding of your needs, interest, and priorities, and will ultimately help us make sure that we bring a relevant service to the market and to all of you. We look forward to continue this partnership moving forward as we go through 2021 and beyond. Slide 4, please. So, looking ahead at 2021, as we look towards this year, the FedNow service continues to remain a top priority for the Federal Reserve. We are certainly looking forward to advancing the development of the service, kicking off the first phase of the pilot program, publishing the final version of the ISO 2822 message specifications, and continue to drive broad industry interest in instant payments. With the technology developments well underway, we have recently announced that we are narrowing down the delivery timeframe of the service by a full year to 2023. So this is an update to what we previously communicated to the industry via previous notice in 2020 that we talked about availability being in the 2023-2024 range. So it is now 2023. As we move forward and as part of our commitment to transparency, we are certainly going to provide updates and further narrow down our launch window as we achieve additional program milestones. And we hope that by sharing this timeline and sharing these milestones with you, our community members, and also with the industry at large, that this is going to continue to serve everybody well in terms of preparing for adopting the FedNow service. From a pilot perspective, at the end of January, we announced that more than 110 organizations from the community will be participating in the program. We're pleased to welcome these financial institutions and processors to our pilot program, and we certainly look forward to kicking off the advisory phase in the first quarter of this year. As we look towards the second half of the year, we will be picking up our conversation with those whom we're calling ecosystem participants. So these are industry players who will partner with financial institutions to launch new products and services via FedNow Instant Payment Rails. So we're going to look to gain their feedback on specific features and use cases, as well as engage their support for end-to-end testing in partnership with participating financial institutions. This ecosystem participants will help to enable readiness around the use cases that are in high demand across the industry, and my colleague Allison will share more details about the pilot program and how we're going to do that later in today's presentation. Furthermore, the FedNow ISO 2022 message specifications, which were drafted based on significant input from working groups and interested community members over the last 8 months, Those message specifications are going to be published later this quarter, so in a few short weeks. In publishing this message specifications, we have also engaged with the clearinghouse to review RTP and also FedNow service draft message specs. So what we're looking for there is for this collaborative effort with the clearinghouse, which is going to be critical to foster routing interoperability and to also minimize friction between message specifications of instant payment networks. So we plan to very much continue our active engagement with the FedNow community this year, including a focus on broad as well as targeted education efforts around the FedNow service and instant payments. And Cassie is gonna talk to those in detail. But let me close by saying that without a doubt here, we have a very exciting year ahead of us. So thank you again for your time that you're spending with us today and for your commitment to staying engaged on development of FedNow. So before we move forward, Cassie, do we have any questions that I can answer?
Yes, Nick, we do. You talked about our collaboration and engagement with the clearinghouse. We have a question that we received actually during the registration process, and it is, what would you say is the main differentiator of the FedNow service?
Thanks, Cassie. And I believe I mentioned this during one of our previous webinars, community forums, but it's worth stating here again. FedNow is being developed to enable financial institutions of all sizes in every community across America to provide safe and efficient instant payment services in near real time, 24/7, 365 days a year. So from a payments perspective, I think some of the main differentiators of the FedNow service are around settlement. So, main master account of financial institutions versus settling a joint account. Also along with customer experience and how we're incorporating this broad industry input into the features and functionality of the service. So frankly, one of the advantages of not being a first mover is learning from domestic as well as global instant implementations. As such, we are committed to working closely with the industry through the project life cycle, and we're also engaging with our future participant base into what we're doing in terms of their onboarding experience, for example, and also engaging them in other areas like business strategy and how we can support and ease their adoption of FedNow. And I think our recently announced pilot program is a great example of how we're doing exactly that. How we're working very closely with the industry in terms of FedNow. There are, of course, some other more technical differentiators, like I mentioned, in terms of settlement against the master account of financial institutions, support for correspondent respondent relationships, and also liquidity management functionality that's going to be available via FedNow.
Okay, thank you, Nick. I'm going to move on now to discuss the 2020 accomplishments from the community, but Nick, don't go anywhere, because at the end of our prepared slides today, we are going to open it up for some more Q&A, and I reckon you will get some more questions. All right, excellent. I'd like to sincerely thank you all for your support and continued engagement during a very unique year for all of us. Despite the challenges of 2020, in part through industry collaboration and dedication, I'm very pleased to say that we've made tremendous progress in developing the FedNow service. Since launching this community in May, industry input has gained momentum and allowed us to engage with you in meaningful ways. Moving to the next slide, Jean, I'd like to discuss your impact as a community on our 2020 goals. All right. Shortly after we launched the community, we had about 500 members across 300 unique organizations. So these guys were the first ones to the party. Our membership and organization count more than doubled since then, however. So we want to revisit our vision shared early on with our first members to kind of bring everyone up to speed. As some of you may recall, during our kickoff last year, we indicated our objectives via the community were to first engage key industry participants with varied experience across various segments to inform our FedNow service development and evolution, technology implementation, and readiness for onboarding. Second, to foster industry innovation, transparency, advocacy, and readiness across the ecosystem. Third, to support engagement and interaction to drive adoption for the FedNow service. And finally, to serve as a forum to identify information needs and disseminate FedNow communications and education to the industry. So we think we've accomplished many of these goals already, and we've done that with your help. We'll continue to pursue these same objectives as we move forward in 2021. But first, and that's something that Allison's going to talk a little bit about. But before that, I'd like to share some of those accomplishments from engagements last year. So if we could move to the next slide, please. As many of you know, industry feedback has been vital as we plan the FedNow service, and it gained momentum as we launched the FedNow community. Due to the pandemic, we're collaborating with each other via a number of virtual events and channels, which included, in last year, webinars, town halls, roundtable sessions, conference calls, focus groups, working groups, polls, our website. We really did try to keep it interesting and effective to meet our purposes, where we really did try to choose the right channel or, type of forum to best get at the objectives for the engagement. All of these engagements have provided great insight into the various needs within the payments industry, and they've ensured community member voices were heard across really the 20-plus different group engagements we had last year. So since May, the community has facilitated meetings with a wide range of industry stakeholders, including banks of all sizes, core providers, and service providers across various topics. And we list some here. They included bill pay, reconcilement, ISO 20022 standards, and even gathering perspectives from processors and aggregators for us to consider. In addition, we gathered input from community members through polls and surveys administered via our website, events, and targeted emails. We know this takes your time, and we have been very pleased with the level of engagement we've seen, and I just wanted to pause here and extend a thank you for taking the time and doing the work to help us out as we've tried to engage and learn more through our interactions with you. All right, let's move on to our next slide. During our community kickoff webinar last June, we asked several questions to help assess the starting point for our efforts. We wanted to understand your perspectives and what you need from us to help you prepare for instant payment. Over 50% of you who responded to our webinar polling questions said you wanted opportunities to provide input and insights to support and influence the development of the FedNow service. We also learned that you felt the ability to stay relevant and competitive would most influence your organization's decision to offer the FedNow service. We heard you on these things, and we developed education and engagement opportunities based on this feedback. As our membership has grown substantially since then, we want to see how the diversity and growth of membership has impacted our results. As such, we are going to revisit some of these questions today. We will move to the next slide and start with how you think you and your customers will use instant payment capabilities. So if we could move to the next slide, we'll see the question there. And you should see a polling option pop up for you to respond to this kind of live in a little box that's going to come up. Perfect. All right. So the question is, for which use case types are instant payments most likely to be leveraged initially? And we offer some options here. Go ahead and select your option, hit submit. We're going to take a few moments to let those come in. We'll show you the results. But basically, we offer, the following options for you to respond. A to A, which is like funding accounts or digital wallets. P to P, which are things like personal payments. C to B, which might be consumer expedited or regular bill pay. B to C, which is expedited payroll. B to B, which is something like invoicing, for example, and then other. So I'll go on and tell you guys while we're waiting for results to come in now that in June you told us that P to P or personal payments was the most likely use case in this response. And the least ranked option at the time was A to A, or funding of your own account, someone's own account. So Jean, let's see where we are here on a response.
All right, thanks, Kathy. So we have quite a few responses, but they are still trickling in, so I want to give everybody a chance to respond. So I'm just going to dance for a second, see if we can get a couple more. Okay, all right. I see that they're starting to slow up, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop that poll. And now, Kathy, I'll show you the results. I'm also looking at the participant view, and I'm going to wait for those to pop up. Okay, I see them, and I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, so we see here, well, the most likely use case, the most popular response has remained unchanged, still P to P. Other, thankfully, I suppose, is the lowest. But interestingly, the least ranked option months ago was A to A, and we're seeing that now coming in as number 2. So interesting to see that kind of progression in thinking, and maybe that's to do with the growth in our membership and diversity there, or maybe just in, our evolving thinking as an industry on where we have need to fill. Excellent. All right. Thank you guys for responding there. We have one more polling question for you here in this part of the presentation. So if we can move on, Jean, to the next slide. Excellent. All right. Again, you should see the polling question with an ability for you to respond pop up here in a moment. But the question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for your organization to adopting instant payments? Options include costs and or risks of updating systems to support service and 24/7 operations, convincing your senior management of the importance of instant payments or the ROI of instant payments, understanding what that is. It could be fraud and security concerns with instant payments. We hear that as well. Or your response might be that you already have an instant payment solution in place, in which case, seemingly, you've found a way to address your biggest challenge and succeeded. So that would be good to know too. This is an important question because it tells us a lot about what's missing to adopt instant payments. It also indicates where we might want to focus some of our energy to support you all if feasible. So we at the Fed would take this information and see what other materials or support we might be able to provide here to the extent possible to help you guys if we see that we have real, a real obvious challenge. So I'll just give you guys, while I know Jean's waiting for answers to come in, the June results revealed that 47% of respondents identified costs or risks of updating systems to support the service in 24/7 operations as their greatest concern. And fraud and instant payments was really the one that came out at the bottom. So it'll be interesting to see here if we've progressed at all in our thinking on what these challenges are. So Jean, let me turn it to you and see if we're close to being able to post our results.
Sure, thanks, Kathy. All right, we do still have a couple of people submitting their responses, so I'm just going to check that number. All right, okay. It's starting to slow now, so I'm going to go ahead and stop that poll, and I'm going to share the results with you now, so hopefully you will see that box pop up, and I'm going to pause and just make sure. Okay, it came up on my view, so hopefully you can see it too, Kathy.
Interesting. Yes, I do. Thank you so much. All right, interesting. So we maintained about the same level of people identifying costs or risks as their biggest challenge, about 50% of you. That's basically what we saw minor uptick since when we last did this poll. And we actually have seen an increase here in concerns about fraud and security with instant payments. It was about 18% last time, and we're seeing it a little higher this time. So that's very helpful. And again, thank you so much for your feedback here. We'll continue to, ask this question and the other one, as we progress, because it really does give us a good kind of temperature check as we move forward and how we're progressing with our thinking as an industry and where we, again, as I said, might offer some support. Okay. So I'm now going to turn it over to Allison Baller to provide a recap of working group activities and lessons learned in 2020 and start our look ahead to the plans of 2021. So Allison, I'll turn it to you.
Great, thanks, Cassie. Let's move to slide 12, and I'm going to walk you through some of the highlights from our engagement, some of the findings specifically from the work groups and roundtables. We are really so grateful for many of you who helped inform the release specifications for ISO 20022, which we are on track to release later this quarter. The first thing I wanted to share is that based on all the feedback, we are really working hard to try to align with best practices. And in addition to that, we are working hard, and Nick touched on this, to really try to promote consistency in information exchange so that we can drive towards interoperability. We also are taking into consideration enhancements suggested to streamline reconcilement for direct participants and correspondents. And if we move on to slide 13, I want to just share a couple updates from our roundtables. With respect to bill pay, the market and the community really validated a strong demand for bill pay use cases. As many of you are aware, there's lots of challenges today in this space, including delays in processing, high costs associated with errors, and even difficulty communicating with billers. So to address this, we have validated the strong desire for RFP functionality, including this confirmation of receipt to close the loop, so to speak. Clearly fraud controls continues to be top of mind as key capabilities and functions for the service. And we also gleaned that there is interest for a consumer directory for FedNow services. We also are continuing to work closely with core processors, payment service providers, credit unions, and bankers banks, and each of you across these segments are really critical to driving towards ubiquity and scale of the service. So this segment of the market overall really confirmed their understanding and their willingness to offer support to financial institutions to enable that back-end system integration to help with that complexity that we're all facing as we move towards 24/7 by 365 payment processing. In addition to that, we also confirmed the need for liquidity provisioning and interest in front-end payment initiation services. So those are capabilities that we all are looking to roll out. Just a few other highlights from what we've gleaned from 2020. We received feedback from the market that 100,000 is the US dollar transaction limit that many of you find valuable for credit transfers. So we haven't, locked that down as the number yet, if you will, for the limits. But we will be coming out closer to market launch with what we think is useful for the market overall based on the latest and greatest details. We also understand that there is interest from many of the FIs to be able to customize the transaction limits by use cases. So of course we're looking into that. And again, just as the recent poll that Cassie
just launched, continued interest in focus around risk management and fraud controls across the service. So more to come on that. If we move to slide 14, I want to talk a little bit more about where we are with the pilot program and really just reinforce our commitment to be transparent about this process and our progress as we move towards general availability, which is now in 2023. So as many of you might have seen, in late January, we announced more than 110 participants that have been selected to join us in the pilot program, and we're really looking forward to officially kicking this off in a couple weeks' time. The nice part about this program and this collaborative engagement is we're going to start out in this advisory phase, whereby we will be not only gaining input from the market, but also, sharing ideas about, what we're thinking about in terms of features and functions to help us inform the development of the service. So we will make sure that we keep you all apprised in the broader community of these learnings. And finally, if we move to slide 15, just want to, mention the importance of the broader ecosystem. So we really received a lot of interest from fintechs, retailers, service providers, and other enablers who really are an important part of driving innovation on top of the FedNow service and also working to help us really move towards new business models and other innovations. So we heard you, and we're super excited, and we will be working to develop a program specific for the ecosystem so that we can have more direct engagement with you all, and we will be sharing details of that program later in the second quarter. So more to come on that, but again, thanks for your interest in this area, and we look forward to collaborating with you in that space. So with that, Cassie, just want to touch base with you. Any other questions that have come through that I might be able to help answer before we move on?
Allison, yes. We have a question actually about the pilot program and how community members can get involved. The question is specifically, is it still possible for organizations to join the pilot?
So unfortunately at this time we are unable to accept additional expressions of interest for the pilot program, but we encourage you to continue to work with us to collaborate so that you're ready for general availability in 2023. You still have the opportunity to be an early adopter of the service, and I just would encourage you to continue working with your account execs and accessing FedNow.org and being engaged in the community roundtables, work groups, surveys, etc. We will continue to collaborate very, very closely through these forums, and like I said, keep you up to date on what's going on in the pilot. So appreciate your continued interest here.
Okay, thanks, Allison. We have one more question about these efforts. We've heard from ecosystem participants, or those organizations not eligible for the pilot, that they'd like to formally express interest in the ecosystem participant program that we're designing. So how can they get involved?
Great. Again, I just want to underscore how excited I personally am, and we are as a whole, about collaborating further with the ecosystem. This is really important to us, and what we decided, we felt like, the first phase of this pilot program, we should really hone in on direct participants, so the financial institutions, processors, and aggregators, but we are going to quickly follow with more details about how we can work more closely with the ecosystems and those participants, and those details will be shared in the coming months. So we are actively working behind the scenes to try to figure out what activities would be most helpful to you all to help drive adoption, new ideas in this space, and would just ask if you have interest and you're within this segment, certainly reach out to the community, and we will be in close touch with you to help evolve this. So more to come. We don't have all the answers yet, but we are actively working behind the scenes on this, Cassie. And again, super excited for this space.
Indeed. All right. Thank you, Allison. I'm going to take over for a little while, but please stick around for our open Q&A that we'll be getting to here in a few minutes. All right. Excellent. Slide 16. I see it up. Another one of our key priorities in 2021 will be to provide you with helpful educational materials for your teams to better understand the capabilities of the initial FedNow service release, as well as general information about instant payments. I'm personally very excited to talk to you guys about the educational work underway. We've been kind of working on it, you know, really since the beginning, and we have very exciting things happening this coming year. So this year, the Fed will continue its educational efforts to inform community members and readers more generally about instant payments and the FedNow service. Our objective is really to foster broad adoption of FedNow across the entire payments ecosystem, so including all types of financial institutions, technology and service providers, and even consumers and business end users. This kind of adoption, we believe, will allow for enriched services and further innovation to ensure we have a robust ecosystem that delivers value to users and many possibilities to providers. So again, we're trying to take a broad view here with our program and the education that we're going to be providing. As you all know, getting to broad adoption can be a significant challenge because each stakeholder's willingness to take on a new payment option depends on the actions of all the other stakeholders with whom they interact. So if we go to slide 17, I'll talk a little bit about our efforts to support user adoption. Here we are. Okay. So to address this challenge, we have been, as I've mentioned, and will continue to be, focusing our educational efforts on catalyzing action in the ecosystem in 3 ways. First, we're developing materials that encourage financial institutions and technology enablers to update their products and services to support instant payments. Second, we're highlighting opportunities for these stakeholders to develop technology and services that will facilitate exciting and compelling new uses on the FedNow rail. And finally, we're working to stimulate demand by familiarizing end users with the many use cases for and benefits of instant payments. So this journey began really with the publication of an educational roadmap that's designed to help readers move from exploring the quote-unquote basics of faster and instant payments in Waypoint 1 to evaluating the unique characteristics and benefits of instant payments in Waypoint 2, and then embarking on an instant payments transformation in Waypoint 3. We published articles, blog posts, infographics, videos, all aligned with the first 2 waypoints last year. These materials address such topics as the differences among types of faster and instant payments, the anatomy of a faster payment transaction, simple and intermediate level use cases, benefits for various stakeholders, worldwide trends, fraud related to instant payments. I mean, we really tried to cover a lot of different topics. We also published information specific to the features and functionalities of the FedNow service, including Q&As, web articles, and a product sheet. So we really tried to explain what's happening, you know, in the ecosystem, what we're seeing happen globally, and also, of course, you know, providing information on the service itself. So we hope that you have been using that so far and have found it useful. And I should note that one easy way to learn when we provide more information or new information is through our community weekly email, which is where we always try to feature new content related to education. Okay, so this year our materials will build upon the foundation that we established last year, focusing particularly on preparing for FedNow service adoption and the sorts of transformative opportunities instant payments can offer to stakeholders. So in this regard, we're planning several different topical series, including, and we list a couple here on the slide, drill downs on the steps involved in getting ready for adoption, key FedNow product features and capabilities that will support adoption and enable new services for end users, ideas for innovative new use cases, FedNow development progress updates and lessons learned from various test scenarios. So we're trying to take aspects of what we're learning, for example, in the pilot and share those as appropriate. And finally, basic reference materials on technical topics like APIs and ISO 20022 that are important to the adoption and widespread use of instant payments. Taken together, these materials are intended as resources to help your organization on its journey to instant payments transformation. To further this objective, we're developing new ways for readers to interact with the materials and find the topics that are most germane to their particular needs, interests, and also just their stage in the learning process. So we're trying to do a little bit more there to help customize the experience. We also plan to provide more tailored resources for the various financial institutions, technology providers, and end users in the ecosystem, including materials they can use to inform their own internal audiences, partners, and or even their customers. So to this end, one of the resources we're currently creating is something that we're calling a customer readiness guide for financial institutions. So if we could go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about this because this hasn't come out yet, but it's like a sneak preview. Okay. So the Customer Readiness Guide is an important step in the process to help support financial institutions and service providers on their journeys to implement FedNow initially and in the future. It's a self-directed online guide that will be tailored to the current needs of particular FI user groups. So as an example, the participant could request information on receiving payments only, or a correspondent participant could request general information about FedNow. The guide is intended to be flexible and will allow users to assemble relevant content based on their needs, which will allow customers to develop a roadmap for implementing the FedNow service. So again, we're just trying to offer like a supportive companion set of content to bring you along on this journey. Regardless of where users are in their implementation, the content will be tailored to point them in the right direction, and that's really what we're hoping to do with this guide. I should note the guide won't replace details found within forthcoming operating circular or more technical specifications and standards. That's important to note. We will build and refine content based on the initial release of the Customer Readiness Guide to pilot participants, so we're hoping to use them first as a way to get some feedback and build it out further to ensure that it is actually going to be a relevant and valuable product to our intended audiences. Upon broader release later this year, our goal is to create a continuous feedback loop with users to help ensure that we provide valuable content that supports your implementation and use of the service again. So really, we understand that this is only going to be as valuable as it is relevant. So we will make sure that we're building in a lot of opportunities to get feedback and understand where to keep building or tailoring this. Okay, so what we thought we might do today as a way to get started with this feedback is preview some of the topics that we have on tap for the Readiness Guide. So if we go to the next slide, it kind of shows you a snapshot of some of the key features and content that we're planning now in our initial efforts to create this. So while we expect content to evolve as we acquire input from pilot participants, we are sharing this today. I'm going to ask you for some quick feedback after I walk through this slide. So as I'm walking through it, just be thinking, maybe jotting some notes down here about what else you think you might need or adjustments that we ought to make to this initial list to make sure that this is as valuable as possible at release. Okay, so planned content as of right now would include a guide to address particular FI participant profiles. And I mentioned this earlier, but those profiles would be things like a sending/receiving payments, receive only, a correspondent, a profile around FI liquidity transactions, etc. We'll also offer information on how participants will manage accounting and reconcilement using reports. It will provide understanding of how settlement works within the FedNow service, guidance on planning for instant payment impact on liquidity, requirements for funds availability and notifications to FI customers. It will help provide an understanding of the clock, i.e. the number of seconds to complete a transaction. It will provide information security expectations for participants, participant availability expectations. So, this idea of 24/7/365 and handling maintenance windows, for example, we'll try to cover there. We'll provide information on how FedLine will provide access to FedNow. I know we get that question actually often, it seems, so that'll be in this guide. Information on ISO messages, considerations and best practices around those, and a readiness self-assessment tool which will support business decisions about FedNow. So trying to help you guys with some of the challenges we've been hearing about as you're thinking about how to adopt or implement instant payments, particularly FedNow. Okay, so as promised, we'd like your feedback on the guide via another poll question. And I'm going to I want to leave this slide up so you can refer back to it as you answer this question. So first, we have a poll here that you can answer. The question is, does this content look right to help support your team's implementation journey? Below, you'll see, if something strikes you immediately, essentially, we'd ask that you go ahead and enter it into the moderated chat. So aside from answering this, question with the radio buttons and you hit submit, you look below that, underneath the slide itself, you'll see this box that says moderated chat. You select that button, it'll open a chat box. You can place your cursor in the field next to the submit button and type your comments there. I should note, your input via this box will be visible to everyone on today's call, and it's going to be attributed to the name you use to sign into the webinar. I hope that does not make you not want to answer this question because we really use the feedback, but we just wanted to be transparent so you're not surprised when you see your information come through on the screen. So by the way, your chat box, if you open up moderated chat, even if you don't have anything that you want to enter here, I'd ask that you just open it up anyway because that's where you're going to see some of the input that we do receive scrolling in. If for whatever reason you don't see anything, it should refresh automatically, but if you just hit moderated chat button again, it will refresh that way. Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone was able to at least, answer the polling question so far, Jean, and let me just open up the moderated chat myself to see. We have some questions coming in here. Please keep those going. We are not going to close the moderated chat box, by the way, so it'll be open through the rest of this presentation. So as things come to you, if you look at this and you think, oh, hey, there's something else I really need, please enter it in, and we'll be collecting those and saving those, sending them back to the team, creating this readiness guide for their consideration moving forward. We're also going to be including a survey question and a survey we'll be sending out to you all as community members next week. The survey is going to cover kind of a wide-ranging set of topics to help you inform us about what our engagement program looks like via the community, what you guys have liked, what you would want to see more of, et cetera. But in there as well, we'll see, you'll see a question again about this readiness guide and what might be missing. So you'll have a second chance there as you think through it and socialize maybe with others in your organization that might have input to provide here. Okay. So in general, you'll continue to receive updates on these developments through the FedNow community email, as I mentioned, as we publish information and resources. So we do hope to continue this two-way dialogue with you because we're eager to hear your suggestions for specific information or topics we should cover in our education materials in a way, to help make this easier for you. All righty. So I think we're ready to move on now to our Q&A section of our webinar. So our goal here, I know we've gotten a number of questions. Our goal here is to get through as many of those as we can in our allotted time. I would love to start by answering maybe just a few more of the questions that were submitted during registration. Again, as a reminder, you can submit your questions at any time during this webinar. So just go ahead and hit that Ask Question button and enter your question and hit Submit, and we'll get that and we'll get it in queue and hopefully get to it before we have to close the call. So I know I have a question that came in through registration that I think I can actually answer, and it is, what decisions face my financial institution next? What choices are needed to move us towards instant payments? This is a great question, and because I'll just take advantage here, because we just covered the Customer Readiness Guide, I think it really speaks to the value of this Customer Readiness Guide that's being developed, as it's intended to be a helpful tool to support financial institutions and service providers on their journeys to implement FedNow initially and in the future. So again, this self-directed guide is going to be tailored to the current needs of particular FI user groups. And I didn't talk about this maybe with this kind of example before, so I'll just drop it in. But a participant could request, for example, information on a receive-only payments, or a correspondent could actually just request general information, really depending on where you are, who you are. You can go in there and tailor this to you so you don't have to sift through a bunch of information that's not useful to you or might be confusing because it really doesn't apply. Okay, so during the second quarter of this year, we're going to be using the pilot program to refine the content, and then we'll be sharing it with you more broadly. So please do look for that because it's really right around the corner. All right, let's move on here. Nick, I have a question for you. How is potential fraud being addressed and mitigated in FedNow?
All right, thanks, Cassie. So one of the things that when we talked about FedNow was the need and importance of safety and security, and that certainly translates to fraud. And we did hear a lot of strong feedback from the industry on this as well in terms of the need for fraud tools. So when the FedNow service will launch, it will have fraud prevention tools available with Release 1 at launch. These tools will be available to participating banks to ultimately assist them in their role as a primary line of defense against fraudulent transactions. So they will be available to help them manage their risk of fraud. And we detail some of the rules that we're considering. They're detailed within the Federal Register notice, but this will include the ability to set lower transaction value limits, for example, to also specify certain conditions under which a transaction would be rejected, and also we're going to include some reporting features as well. The idea here is also that over time, as the experience with the service grows, we will continue to offer more and more advanced fraud prevention tools. And as you can imagine, also from a internal perspective, we will protect information that is provided via the FedNow payment rail. So security is paramount to our payment services and will continue to be so. So we will protect information such as, anything that comes through, like, customer names and account numbers, So everything that we do related to the FedNow service is well aligned with Federal Reserve standards and industry best practices as it relates to security.
Okay, Nick, thank you very much. I have one more question for you. Can you share some details of the technical design of the service?
Yeah, so I mentioned before that related to 2023 that we're making strong progress there in terms of development of the service. The build of the core FedNow service is advancing well. It's advancing using an agile development methodology. We are using a set of technology to create a very flexible infrastructure that will ultimately support innovation and also can evolve over time to meet future market needs. So some technologies that I can reference here may include, for example, support for the use of APIs and other type of technological capabilities to promote the usability and ease of access of the service. Also, I believe there was a question about this in terms of technology platform as well. Our technology strategy does blend basically Federal Reserve and also external vendors, and includes assessing opportunities to leverage emerging technologies. And I can confidently say that the FedNow technology team will continue as we move forward to assess opportunities to leverage these emerging technologies where they can provide a appropriate business as well as technology advantage.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Allison, question for you. It is, what features will be available in FedNow on launch day, and what other features are being considered?
Great, thanks, Cassie. So Release 1 will have core clearing and settlement capabilities, and that will support a broad range of transaction types and use cases. We also will be rolling out features that support flexible adoption. So as an example, you can enroll as a receive-only participant as a starting point. We also have value-added features coming with requests for payment capabilities and tools to support participants in their handling of payment requirements, reconcilement, exceptions, etc. In addition to that, we will have a capability for participants to broadcast their availability, and this will help support that transition to 24/7. We are offering a user interface to support data needs, and also you will have the ability to have access to balance information even on the weekends. Just to name a couple other items, we're rolling out a liquidity management tool that will allow participants to and others to transfer funds to each other to support those liquidity needs that, of course, are a foundation for instant payments. And then, finally, as we work through this process and continue to expand our roadmap, we will work with you and gain suggestions from the market about, additional features around fraud prevention, error resolution, case management, etc. And then finally, given, the excitement around person-to-person payments and interest there, we also will continue to explore capabilities to support this functionality in terms of alias-based payments and a directory from that perspective. So really looking forward to continue to work with you all to take input into our product roadmap. Thanks, Cassie.
Thank you, Allison. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. Nick, I have a question for you. Will FedNow be available to foreign payments? Can you send funds overseas?
So Cassie, at launch, FedNow service will support only domestic payments. We do understand that being able to send and receive instant payments to and from family members or businesses in other countries overseas is a desired feature. We heard that over and over again. So we will continue to, as we move beyond the release 1, we will continue to evaluate both the cost and benefits of expanding the FedNow service to support cross-border payments in the future, but at launch again, FedNow will support only domestic payments.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Allison, let me transition to you. The first question is, has the list of 110 pilot organizations been published? Allison, you might be on mute.
I was on mute. Thank you. Yes, it has been posted, and you can find that on the fednow.org community page for more details.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Allison, don't go back on mute. I have another question for you. When do you anticipate FIs who are not in the pilot program will be able to sign up and use FedNow?
Okay. So, look, we are still working through the development of the onboarding processes, and we will continue to work with pilot participants to fine-tune that process. So once we're closer to finalizing that and we've released pricing and operating circulars and agreements, we will open up the opportunity for non-pilot participants to start working with their account execs to sign up for FedNow. So if you're interested in that track, if you will, definitely reach out to your account executives today, and we'll work with you in lockstep to make sure you're ready for that track as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Allison, I'm sorry, but I have another one for you here. Very popular today, your topics. Okay. The question is, and I'm just going to read it directly, we are working with the vendor for our upgrade and instant payments, but they are unable to be selected as one of the participants. How can we get them involved in the FedNow project?
All righty. So what I would encourage you to do is to continue engaging with us through the community and take advantage of the content that we will continue to publish on fednow.org. This will help you track with us and understand kind of where we are in the service and how that's coming along. And again, you know, work with your account exec and share with your account exec how you're looking to work with your vendor so that we can, you know, collaborate together to make sure, you know, that your partners are also involved in this process.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. I'm sorry, Allison. I'm going to ask you one more before I let you take a break, okay? The question is, what is the schedule for testing and rollout? When in 2023 will consumers start using the service?
All righty. So it's important to note, and I think this has been mentioned a couple different times. So we updated on February 2nd, we announced that we pulled in the launch timeline to 2023, which is really good news. And you know, we're taking a flexible approach to service development. And as we iterate and evolve this, we will continue, hopefully, to narrow this implementation timeline to let you know when more exactly general availability is going to be. Now, extensive testing by more than 110 FedNow participants in the pilot program will occur, obviously, closer to that GA date. And, we expect that we'll move into some early testing towards, the tail end of this year into 2022. So more details to come as we, hone in on the exact GA date, and we'll keep you apprised.
Thanks, Allison. Okay, you can take a break for a few minutes here because I have a few questions for Nick up. All right, Nick, with 2 immediate payment network owners, what is going to be the governing network rules process? Are new rules going to be released simultaneously with TCH?
Yeah, thanks, Cassie. Good question. So I previously mentioned that we have engaged with a clearinghouse on ISO 20022 specification. We also discussed in that process the payment flows between what it looks like, how does it look for RTP, how does it look for FedNow, and also discuss implementation guidance where possible. We certainly benefited from these discussions and really appreciate the perspective that they provided. And based on this discussion, we have also made changes to our initial specifications to support a very high level of alignment, of compatibility between FedNow service and RTP. To this question, as we look ahead to future releases for both services, we certainly anticipate additional opportunities for dialogue and potential alignment as we move forward, as we proceed.
Okay, Nick, thank you. Another question for you. What are the benefits of the FedNow Instant Pay when we currently have P2P with our processor and other instant pay options like Venmo, Cash App, etc.?
Yeah, another good question here. So FedNow at its most fundamental level provides interbank settlement that enables funds transfers from a sender's bank account to a receiver's bank account immediately and at any time. So this has certain positive implications towards, credit risk and credit risk exposures that a bank might have at each other, to each other. And the way we're designing FedNow is to be very flexible, to be a very neutral platform that supports a broad variety of instant payments, not just P2P, but also beyond that. So it is a platform that is going to serve many needs of the financial institutions and their service providers, and they will be able to build on top of FedNow, on top of this fundamental interbank settlement capability to ultimately offer value-add services to their customers. And that's why some of the features that we're including even with release 1, such as request for payment that could enable bill payment use cases, and also some additional P2P functionality, and this ability to include rich information about the payment, like bill or invoice information. You can include that along with the payment. That's also going to support not just some potential P2P use cases, but also business-to-business use cases as well. So again, it's a broader, more neutral platform for a variety of instant payments in addition to P2P.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. We have a question here for you about directories, and the question is, what about a directory for business payments with, and this is a quote, with BEC, which is business email compromise, so rampant? I feel like this is critical.
Yeah, so look, we certainly understand, based on the feedback that we received, that there are many financial institutions that will like to leverage FedNow service to offer P2P service or other type of use cases where customers can originate a payment using an alias, such as an email or phone number. We are actively exploring various approaches to support this capability based on suggestions from the industry. But one of the key features here that we also discuss as well is the need for fraud tools and fraud capabilities to address and mitigate and help the institutions manage their risk of fraudulent activity that could potentially flow over the FedNow service.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. All right, you are off the hot seat for a minute here. You got some toughies. So let me go to Allison and give you a minute to relax. All right, Allison, the question is, will this help consumers and small businesses as end users? And I think that means will this FedNow help consumers and small businesses as end users? Can you go into more detail about how FedNow will serve those who are currently unbanked?
Absolutely. So through the financial institutions that are planning to participate in the FedNow service, businesses really of all sizes and individuals will be able to send and receive instant payments very conveniently. So, for example, you can do so through your mobile device, hopefully, and recipients will have full access to those funds within seconds. So that will drive, better cash management, essentially, and offer up the ability to make more time-sensitive payments, which obviously is key for businesses from a cash flow perspective. The ability to have full access to funds, within seconds during crisis times is also, as we've seen, a key feature. Now, regarding the unbanked or the underbanked population, the FedNow infrastructure will be really valuable to providers who want to offer and extend additional services to this particular constituency. I can't say that word. And actually, it's interesting because the Faster Payments Council just kicked off a working group to explore financial inclusion and to work to define, ways and opportunities to really address additional capabilities in this space. So we will be very closely involved in that, and it's certainly a key focus area for us from that standpoint.
Thanks, Allison. Great answer. One more for you here. Will an end-user application, for example, Venmo, be able to engage with the service directly, or will they need to go through an intermediary financial institution like a bank?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. So, as with the current Federal Reserve Bank services, FedNow is only available to depository institutions that hold accounts at the reserve banks based on federal statutes, rules, policies, procedures, etc. But participants can designate a service provider or an agent to submit or receive payment instructions on their behalf. So as a participant, you'll be able to settle payments in the account of a correspondent if you choose to do so. And merchants, consumers, or non-bank payment service providers can access the service through depository institutions as you do today with other payment systems. So hopefully that clarifies things.
Thanks, Allison. Nick, I have a question for you, and this is about payment disputes. The question is, how will payment disputes be handled? Will they mirror NACHA rules? Will the originator or the receiver bear the liability for unauthorized transactions?
Thanks, Cassie. Look, I think what we can say right now, because we're still, writing a lot of the rules and operating circulars, is that we expect that UCC 4A and Reg E rules will apply to FedNow payments, so that's our expectation. Also that's going to require DIs to work directly with each other. Now, we're certainly going to look to see how we can support this dispute process over time.
Okay, thanks, Nick. One more on rules. Does the Fed anticipate an outside organization to be responsible for rules for FedNow, like NACHA is to ACH?
So not at this point, Cassie. We're still working through the details there, but we're not considering that at this point in time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Allison, can vendor partners of the 110 piggyback on the testing, I think what they mean of the pilot participants, piggyback on the testing development efforts?
So a couple ways, Cassie, to answer that question. As we mentioned earlier, we are working to develop a specific program for ecosystem participants, vendors, et cetera. More to come on that as we develop and roll that out. But I think it's important to note what we're really looking to work towards, with the overall ecosystem is we are encouraging participants to connect with their partner FIs, their partner banks, and essentially join us and join their partner banks to support the end-to-end testing of solutions as we get closer to general availability. So, the short answer there is, two ways to get involved. Stay tuned for more activities for the ecosystem, but continue in the meantime to work with your financial institution partner to define, the use cases and the best collaboration methods so that you can join us in as an early adopter from an ecosystem perspective when we're closer to testing.
Excellent. Thanks, Allison. Nick, I'm going to turn back to you. We have a question here about roles. So will FedNow offer a third-party sender type role, such as what exists in the ACH world?
Yeah, thanks, Cassie. So we are exploring opportunities to determine whether we can support a third-party access role in future releases for FedNow. But we have not made that final determination at this point. So, more to come on that over time.
Okay, Nick, perhaps you can talk a little bit about correspondent relationships. We have a question here. Will FIs be able to send and or receive FedNow instant payments on behalf of other FIs like an aggregator?
Yeah. So the short answer to that question is yes, FedNow will support correspondent-respondent relationships. And I think you might have mentioned this before. As part of the customer readiness guides, we will look to provide more insight and education around, how those relationships work in FedNow, how to set them up. So that's an important topic of our education. We're also going to offer one more thing. We're also going to look to offer supporting reports for participants and correspondents. So this is going to be, a relationship that is going to be strongly supported within the service.
Thanks, Nick. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I got so excited because our next question, I think, is also referring to the customer readiness guide. So I just jumped right in. So the other question is, what does understanding the clock mean? And I think this question does come from the slide that we were showing earlier with the topics we're considering for the guide.
Yeah. So what the clock is about is we're going to do as part of the customer readiness guide is provide an overview in terms of, how the clock of the survey works when it comes to processing payment messages, for example. When and how to expect responses back, like, for example, acknowledgments, advices, when the clock starts, how it's implemented. Here's where we're also gonna define the responsibility of the sender and receiver in the payment flow. So, for example, the sender is going to put a timestamp in the payment instruction. The receiver is going to have X amount of seconds to respond, and more of this kind of like time of payment associated type of features and functionality and settings that participants will need to understand and develop around.
Thanks, Nick. All right, we have about 5 minutes left here, so we're going to have to move into a little bit of a lightning round because I think we have a chance of getting through a lot of the remaining questions. So, Nick, just because you've been on the spot, let me ask you one more. When do you expect fees to be published?
Yeah, so we have not determined pricing for the service, so that the Federal Reserve has not yet determined that yet in terms of how the fees are going to be applicable for the FedNow service, so basically the fee structure and schedule is going to be informed by the Board of Governors assessment of market practices at the time of the implementation. And what I can say is that the schedule and the fee structure will be published well in advance of the launch of the service, but we don't have a specific date as of now.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have one here I can take on the U.S. Faster Payments Council. The question is, will the U.S. Faster Payments Council, or FPC, be tapped by the Fed to help with the adoption of the FedNow service? I can answer that to say that we are a member of the FPC. We work with them on a number of their work efforts, different work groups they have underway. We've mentioned at least one of the work efforts, if not a couple, even on today's call. The Faster Payments Council is working on a lot of issues that we feel are relevant, to the industry right now as we're thinking about the direction for instant and faster payments. We do work closely with the FPC, as we do with many other organizations. The FPC is a member of the FedNow community, and they've been very actively engaged in working with their members to provide us feedback through different engagements we've done, surveys, questionnaires we've sent out, et cetera. And so we do look to, find synergies and see where we can benefit from mutual efforts to learn together where that makes sense. So I will say, yes, they've been a very active participant in our industry community. All right, one more question for you, Nick, before we close. I believe, the question is, I believe you mentioned you were working with TCH. Will payment messages flow from FedNow through TCH?
No, Cassie, they will not. So what I was bringing up previously was how we are working with TCH as it relates to the message specification and flows. However, when we're talking about interoperability, we're talking about routing interoperability. There will be no direct connectivity between an exchange of messages, at this point at least, between FedNow and TCH RTP system.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have a couple questions here I can answer as part of the close. One is there a list of account executives published? The answer is yes. On frbservices.org, there is a contact button at the top of the home page. There you can find your account executive by ABA number. So that is available, again, on frbservices.org, contact button at the top of the home page. I got another question here. Will today's presentation be available for download? Yes, it will. We'll send it out as we do for any of these webinars. We'll send out a whole recording, supporting materials, likely within a couple weeks. I think we have it scheduled for week after next to go out. It takes us a little bit to pull things together and get it all polished up for consumption. You'll get a notice of that through the FedNow Community Weekly email when it's available. You'll get that, that link in there to go back to where we'll have it all posted online for you to access and listen to again and again to your heart's content. So look forward to that. All right, so I want to go ahead and close today's webinar. I want to reiterate our commitment to being transparent about our progress and to support you and your progress towards implementation. We've mentioned this several times today, but we do plan to provide periodic updates throughout the year as we achieve key milestones in the delivery of our FedNow service. And as part of this, we're planning several upcoming community communications, including opportunities coming up to engage in roundtables and working groups. Our first community member survey, which I mentioned to you earlier, we plan to conduct this a couple of times a year moving forward, but we're going to have one coming out next week for you. We really do hope that you take the time to answer that. We're also going to be providing very shortly ISO 20022 message flows and detailed message specifications for release 1 of the FedNow service, which is expected to come out just still yet in the first quarter of this year, so very soon, because we are really running through this year. Okay, we will, please stay tuned to receive these emails from us. We really are interested in your candid feedback, so please, as opportunities come up, take the time and give us your thoughts there. Thank you for your time today and your commitment to the success of our service. I also want to thank my fellow presenters. They sure did have a lot of questions, rapid fire to get through today. And we look forward to continuing our productive collaboration in the year to come. So thank you so much and have a great day.